Things are going for broke. Neitz is there, Uze is roving him, and he does finish it. Davey, here he goes. Can he do the business? You just never know. Impossible angle. Good kick. Neitz. The Demons are back in front.
Nathan Jones played in his first and only victory in a final 201 games ago in his 7th match as an AFL player. And for the first time in a decade, he probably feels as if he's in a position to dream once again. He joins us on the couch. Welcome to you, Jonesy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
It must seem a long, long time ago with a lot of downs in between, but all of a sudden now, things look as if the wheel has turned.
Yeah, it does. You know, that obviously brings back some memories. Only my 7th game, and yeah, look, I didn't get much of the ball that night, but it was a fair experience playing against St Kilda, who I'd backed for, and getting the win. And since then, you know, 10 or 11 years have passed, and we haven't had too much success. But as you said, I think there's been some promising signs over probably the last 12 or 18 months, and it's been a relatively exciting start to this season.
Can I ask you about the weekend? 32 points was the difference, but I thought you were a bit closer to the Bulldogs than you were. What was your thoughts on the defeat?
Yeah, look, I think we were obviously disappointed not to get a result, and probably in the end not to be a little bit closer. But I think, you know, I guess initially after the game, the frustration sort of comes out. But having a bit of perspective, sort of 24 hours after the game, they're probably a top 4 side. And on the weekend, I think we played our youngest and most inexperienced side across the competition. So they were number 1 in contested possession on the weekend. I think we were sitting about number 4. And you know, I guess after the game, you sort of sit back and look, you know, for where we're at in our journey, you know, the age group and demographic of our list, we've still got a long way to go. And to compete consistently with a side like that, you know, I expect the Doggies to finish top 4. And, you know, I think it was a great experience for our team to play a team of that calibre in some of the areas that we really value. And obviously we respect them greatly with how they go about their footy. And it sort of showed us to the level that we have to try and get to.
And obviously that was defensively is a big part of the Bulldogs. That's where they've really improved on this year. If they can defend Etihad Stadium, we think that's probably the hardest ground to defend on. Was that noticeable for you, coming out, how frantic they are in defence and how much pressure they put on? Yeah,
I think a lot of that comes around the contest. You know, I think that statistically they're that far ahead of everyone in contested possession. I think that their pressure and how ferocious they are at the contest forces those sort of balloon balls, and it's difficult to get, you know, really clean entries inside forward 50. And then they've got some terrific backs that can come off 1.5 man, intercept mark, these kind of things. And then obviously they're really slick with some outside players offensively and have really high scoring power. So we saw that, you know, at full frontal yesterday, and it was, yeah, it's exciting for them, and I think it sort of shows some of the areas we have to continue to work on.
I was watching the game and I saw Christian Petracca kick the ball to the top of the square, and it gave a great insight into, I think, just how well they defend, particularly Matthew Boyd, whose peripheral vision is quite superb. I suspect this was a poor kick from a youngster. I imagine you want to go down the skinny side and not kick it to this high side. But look at Boyd's vision. He knows he can see the 2 players where Petracca thinks, I'll do that, and he just mops it up and says, young bloke, there's a little bit more to be learnt. Have you had some, I guess, feedback to Petracca on that particular kick? Yeah,
I think it probably also highlights the work rate of the Dogs. I think by looking at that piece of vision, they've got more numbers back, and their defence works with 18 men, you know. Their on-ball side players tend to press up, and their off-ball players tend to get back and help support. And you know, we had a focus on trying to move the ball really quick to try and expose that. But in that sort of instance where Christian faced on the weekend, we'd expect him to sort of go down the line and hope that we can get a contest from our tools.
Dogs are plus 28 contested possession this year. Next best is plus 17. GWS plus 69 uncontested. Plus 19 inside 50s. They're unbelievable numbers, and they're the best numbers we've seen for quite some time. I think we can tick off now that they're the real deal. Yep. We're waiting for a good enough portion of the year to get rolling. 8 rounds, you'd have to say they're the real deal.
You've played GWS and the Dogs. Who are the better side? I know you beat the GWS.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to say with GWS. I don't think they're up and going as much as they are right now, but you know, I think after yesterday we've also played the Kangaroos, which we went pretty well against, but I think, you know, from my point of view, I think the Doggies are the real deal at the moment, particularly if they work around the contest.
Okay, you saw Kingy's thoughts on the Diamond D. Let's have another look at it and get your thoughts on it.
Some great work by you, Key. Yeah, look, I just look at it before, and here it is again
Talk
now.
us through. I mean, you don't have to give away everything, but talk us through it. This is very aggressive, isn't it? Is the strategy to get 8v6 in the middle or 9v6 if you can with a half forward running in and just trusting your back four there?
Yeah, well, we're putting a lot of emphasis on our contest in the middle of the ground, obviously, and we feel, particularly against the Doggies on the weekend, they're so good around that contest area. We wanted to try and outnumber in the situations where we could, and that the centre bounce there presented that opportunity with our half backs. But it's sort of something we've been tinkering with over probably the last few weeks, and on the weekend we probably went a little bit more aggressive due to the numbers that you mentioned with the Bulldogs.
Has it been noticeable a more aggressive approach on offence this year? You've obviously spent a lot of time defensively previous seasons. This year seems to be a big ramp up in your points scored and the way you play when you got the ball in the hands.
Yeah, I think I guess it's been widely reported how much we've improved in that area, but that's been a long part of our journey in terms of the process and the foundations we've laid over probably 3 years now. Initially it was improving and bolstering our defence and increasing our ability to compete around the contest, and then pre-season just gone was turning those contest wins into uncontested chains and scores. I think last year we reduced our points against and found ourselves more competitive and in games, but weren't able to kick winning scores. So we put some time in over the pre-season and worked really hard on 18-man offence, and that's resulted in some pretty positive improvement in that area.
I want to ask you about Jesse Hogan. He's the $15 million man, according to
Brownie.
He's got some issues with his run-up, but his accuracy is superb. The issue is, do you focus on his run-up, and you will see it in a number of occasions here. This was round 8, and you see him swing out to the right. I mean, that's a pretty ugly assessment, I would have thought. And yet last year, his accuracy numbers were in the middle 60s. Again, swings out, probably trying to get a little bit more distance. Is it a focus, or are you just leaving it be?
From my perspective, it's not too much of a focus. I think if you go back and, as you said, look at his accuracy from last season, he was quite high in terms of key forwards. I think it's a work in progress for him. He's only 28 games into his career and still working out what works and what doesn't. I think some of those things you see there, he's obviously pulling out to the right to try and gather a little bit more distance from those longer shots, but all in all, it's something that's very sort of personal, and I think it's something that he's still sort of working through. He spends a lot of time at training getting it right, and when he does, obviously we saw him a few weeks ago against St Kilda kick 7 straight. So it's sort of hard to judge at this stage. It probably let him play another 50 or so games and sort of see how it goes.
We've had a look at some of his junior kicking and even last year, and here he is in the under-18s. Jason, take us through it.
Well, he's very similar. I mean, the starter steps there, it's a shortish run-up. He's a little bit different with his ball grip, I think. But all in all, it's not a completely different run-up. And, I mean, Nathan made the point before that his conversion's okay. So whilst a lot of people outside might be wanting to see dramatic changes, if a guy's converting well, he ain't going to change. He's going to go with what he knows. And if he's converting at 65% plus over his career, that's as good as just about anyone that kicks in the game. I think 70% is the top. But I think we take it, if you can kick 2 out of 3, 66%, you're a very efficient kick. He's not far off that, so he doesn't need to do a lot.
Just got a question. Do you think, though, it's a problem how he veers out to the right, especially for those long kicks?
Well, he only does it for the long ones because he's outside his kicking comfort zone. Now, look, he does a number of things that I ideally wouldn't like to see, but you let him go with it because he's comfortable and he's converting, so I don't think we need to make as big a deal of it as perhaps a lot of people are.
Now, Jonesy, you've obviously been whacked around the chops for the last 10 years. You're a struggling side, of course, but are you trying to get a little bit back now over the journey? We saw a bit of footage a few weeks ago against Richmond, and after the game, you just reminded Jack Rewalt of maybe some of the past sledges that went on. What's happening there?
Requires some explanation, and proper explanation.
Oh, no, look, there was a fair bit of banter in the game, obviously. Actually, at one stage, Jack had Jack Viney and myself both in a headlock and was throwing us around. So, yeah, and fortunately, we got the result that night. And, there's not too much in it, really. It was just...
what was said, Jonesy?
A little bit of friendly banter, Jared, and it's, what happens on the field stays on the field, and there's nothing... There's nothing untoward.
So obviously Jack's been bagging you for 5 years. Who else is on the
there
hit
might
list?
be a few more. I've got a long memory, but look, it's all stays on the field, and as far as I'm concerned, Jack and I, flushed it out there, and it was all in good spirit.
Can I ask you about yourself? This year I've been watching your returns quarter to quarter. Your first halves, often you've been 17, 18 possessions. Second halves dropping right back. Have you personally struggled with the rotations?
No, it's been an interesting one. I have struggled early, particularly probably the first 6 rounds in managing my body. I think obviously having my injury last pre-season with my neck, I didn't really get involved in sort of main footy training until post-Christmas, sort of probably late January. So
I've got some vision of your X-rays here, which it was cutting edge surgery. That there is clearly some sort of false disc. What is it?
I had a prolapse disc for the entire season last year, and I ended up opting for artificial disc surgery post-season in, I think, between C5, 6 vertebrae. So, it was an interesting recovery. Throughout my career, I haven't had any serious injuries, touch wood, and, post-season last year, I came to the decision of trying to jump on an issue that had sort of hampered me for the entire year. And
what were you feeling symptomatically through the year?
Initially, it was pretty acute pain in my neck, depending on the movement and the position that I got myself in. But a few cortisone injections got me through and reduced the pain. But as the year went on, with the pressure that disc put on the nerve, I ended up losing quite a lot of strength in the left side of my shoulder and arm. So
did it affect the muscle bulk or perhaps the darkness of the tattoos?
I've got it back now. It hasn't affected the tattoos at all, but it's taken some time to rejuvenate, and it's it was an interesting sort of process to go through.
A lot of people have been fascinated by the partnership and the handover arrangement between Paul Roos and Simon Goodwin. I think we know the background of Roosy, but can you tell us about the Simon Goodwin impact and how that's played out throughout, in particular, this season at Melbourne?
Yeah, look, I think it's, from my point of view, being inside the club, seeing it work day to day, I think it's going terrifically. I think, Roosy's obviously the senior coach at the moment. We saw, Goody gain some experience through the NAB Challenge Series. It sort of opened the eyes to the players of, what it's going to look like beyond Roosy. But in the end, we've got a handful of coaches that are all on the same page, all educating our playing group and all teaching us, the way we want to play footy. And Roosie and Goody see the game fundamentally the same way. I'm assuming there'll be some tinkerings in terms of when Goody does take over, but I think Goody's fallen back into the that offensive coordinating role, and he's taken control of our offense this season and can be credited for the improvement in our scoring.
Is it more fun kicking more goals?
Oh, bloody oath, mate! It's, even though it's not hasn't been the perfect season by any means, but I think you only have to come and watch us play. I think our playing group looks like they're excited, they're up for the challenge, and we feel like we can win when we play at our best. And it's I had a ripping time the week before when we beat Gold Coast and we kicked 24 goals. And even though we lose on the weekend, I think we were up for the challenge to face one of the better teams in the competition. So it's an exciting time down there. We're well aware of where we're at and where we've got to improve. But I'm definitely loving my footy at the moment.
Imagine where they'd be with Jake Stringer in the team.
It's unbelievable.
We ask all of our guests that come in. This is going to be a tough sell tonight, to be honest.
Run with it.
Jesse Hogan or Jake Stringer, if you had to build a side around one player, which would it be? And you saw him firsthand the weekend. Oh.
Well, I'm biased to my surfing buddy Jesse Hogan, so I'm picking him. I'll be surprised if you didn't, Jared, but I'm a massive Hogan fan.
I'm very glad you brought up surfing. You are a keen surfer, a few of the boys are. You surf with this bloke a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
So if we're scoring the rides, if we're scoring the waves,
look at that.
if we're head-to-head in the World Surfing League, who wins between you and Jared?
Be careful, Jonesy.
Jared's got me covered.
That's not what I'm hearing.
He's the man of steel.
Well tried.
Is it true though? Every time you boys surf on a Tuesday, you win, And every time you don't surf, you lose. Surely you're going surfing tomorrow.
Look, after yesterday's game, it was one of the first things James Harms and Jesse and myself said in the change rooms was we missed the surf last week, so we're back on the bike tomorrow, that's for sure, and hopefully that results in a win this
Where will
weekend.
you be, Jerry, tomorrow?
I'll be just watching, and
He's mentoring the Demons down at Winky.
I'll be expecting Paul Roos to show up tomorrow. Jonesy, good luck for the rest of the season. 4-4, you're in a pretty good spot, and it was actually good to see you smiling on a game or two throughout the season. Thanks for your coming.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Nathan Jones, our special guest. Plenty more to come, including Jason Dunstall having a very close look at the Fremantle Dockers. And he's also going to tell us whether or not he'd pick up Travis Cloak if he was available for Hawthorn.